But first, presidential candidate Senator Joe Biden. Senator, you have said for months that this was the most important country in the world for us to keep an eye on. Where do we go now?
Well, I think we better go clear and steady, Chris. Look, the most important thing that has to happen now is they've got to hold these fair and free elections. You know, Bhutto, I'm convinced, would have won a significant majority. I spoke to her several times, like you did. My staff is over there with her, was over there talking to her. I had written 2 detailed letters to Musharraf, laying out the kind of security needs that she needed in types of vehicles, the protection and she didn't get that protection. This was foreseeable, and it was, I would argue, it was avoidable. But no one seemed to want to listen.
You know, a good leader is dead, and they're very hard to find, Senator. You're a politician. As much as people are tough on politicians, I keep reminding myself how much we need them. We need democratic leaders in this world, because without democratic leaders, we're stuck with the choice between dictators and terrorists. The only good leaders are the elected ones. She's an elected leader. How are we going to find another Benazir Bhutto in that part of the world?
Well, I think you have to start off with the basic, I think, truth of Pakistan. That is, the vast majority of Pakistan is secular and moderate. That's why she would have won. That's why you cannot begin to get things in order in Pakistan until you end this tyranny of a single man being able to run the country. That's why we need elections, as imperfect as they are. There is no obvious leader. The leader who was part of her party, who is the leader of the lawyers now, who is a really talented guy, he may very well emerge as an alternative within her party. But you've got to have these elections, and you have to have them relatively soon, Chris. Otherwise, you justify a continuation of martial law. You continue to drive underground what I would argue would be 65 to 70% of the population of Pakistan, which, again, is secular and moderate. So as imperfect as it is, I think you have to move forward with the free elections, and we should be putting extreme, I've spoken to him twice and been very blunt with him, extreme pressure on Musharraf to hold transparently fair elections.
Connect these dots if you can, Senator, and you have been foresightful in this case. Connect these dots. Bin Laden is somewhere in the hills, in the mountains, somewhere on that border, perhaps in the country itself of Pakistan. That country of Pakistan, an Islamic Republic, controls a lot of nuclear weapons, and it has an unelected government, or really an unpopular government, if you will. Put all that together.
Well, here's 2 things, Chris. Number one, if we do not have full and free elections, you're going to drive underground that moderate majority. You're going to see Musharraf continuing to make his deal with the very people who are hiding and supporting bin Laden, the Taliban, and al-Qaeda. You're going to see the rest of that area deteriorate in a way that is very, very dangerous for us. I remind people, Pakistan is larger than Russia. There are more Pakistanis than Russians, number one. Number two, they're bristling with nuclear weapons. They have delivery systems, that is, missiles that can deliver those weapons. You must begin to establish some stability by giving that large majority of secular, moderate Pakistanis a voice in a parliament. That's the beginning. It won't be perfect, but I know what will happen absent that. Absent that, you'll see a deterioration, and you'll see a further deterioration of the Indian and Pakistani relationship. You will see Afghanistan begin to falter beyond what it is now because of what's going on in Pakistan. This is all connected, as you well know. The key to me is giving an outlet for that vast middle secular Pakistani population to be represented in an electoral process in Pakistan.
Does President Bush trust democracy in Pakistan?
I hope to God he does, instead of trusting Musharraf. He keeps talking about Musharraf being a Democrat with a small d. I've seen very little evidence of that. My last conversation with Musharraf was about a week ago. And I wanted to make it clear to him, as the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee and a prospective possible president, that there would be consequences for failure to have transparent elections.
So you expect, Senator, there will be elections. Those elections will be democratic. There will be an opposition from the people who supported Benazir Bhutto even after her death. There will be a real winner who could actually take on, a real contender who could take on Musharraf and perhaps beat him in a clean election.
The answer is yes. I was with a guy who's been campaigning for me, a guy you know, Ed Josephs. He and O'Hanlon of the Brookings Institution wrote the report on Iraq. He left the campaign out here to go to Pakistan. He sent me an extensive email last night. He had spent an hour and a half with Bhutto the night before, and he told me she was extremely optimistic. He delivered a message from her to me, and what he hoped a message that would get to Bush. She believed, as I believe. She's convinced me. I've known her since 1988. This is a personal law. I mean, I don't want to exaggerate it. She was a very good acquaintance. This was an incredibly, incredibly brave woman. She was optimistic. If you just get the elections underway, have them transparent and basically free, not perfect, that you would see a turnout among this secular middle class that would begin to be an anchor for the requirement to force Musharraf to make some of the changes that are necessary, because it would generate world support as well. Who that leader will emerge, who they elect, because they will win a majority if there is an election. Who will be, I don't know. Will it be a Bhutto? No. One will have to be developed. But it's the first step. Absent that, Chris, I don't see anything good happening.
Okay, thank you very much, Senator Joe Biden, candidate for the Democratic presidential nomination and chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, coming from Iowa. Andrea Mitchell's NBC.